All right. Today's practice was up and down, and I thought there were good moments. I thought the defense had a good response at the end, but there were times in practice where I didn't feel the edge that's necessary. We got challenged, held accountable, and we're going to be better than what we were today. And so, for the standard and expectation of what this football team needs to be, we got to respond. There's some positions are light in numbers, due to different injuries or guys that not quite available yet. And we got some guys that are fighting their butts off, to maximize the opportunities they have, and then there's guys that are missing out on opportunities to take advantage of some of the reps that they're getting. So we got to bring a better edge throughout. But I thought the defense, middle part of practice was just okay. I thought that towards the end, you felt the energy. There's some explosive plays that showed up, and they responded well. I think that there's the different dynamics that can show up throughout the course of a practice. Throughout the course of spring ball, there's competition, there's push, and I'm looking for guys that show the edge and response that's necessary for us to go and be what I know we're capable of being. So I thought there's good and bad in it, but we'll go and continue to push and be better.
Chris? When that's happening in real time, were players recognizing it? Were players vocal that?
Yeah, I mean, there's you see it, and I want it to be more and quicker, and so but you got to see what it looks like and who's willing, and so I think that's part of opportunities that we have to seize. That we've got to address, that we got to identify, and as a coaching staff, we got to be better. We got to show what we want that to look like. We got to affirm it. When we see the players holding guys to it, to end themselves to that standard, and they've got to feel that energy and see that response from us. Just as a staff as well.
Going back to the scrimmage, when you watch film and met with the staff afterwards, anything revelations or anything?
No, I mean, I thought there, you watch the first groups going. I thought, offensively, there was, good movement of the ball. At times where they're able to see them, put together drives. We lacked, or we had some missed opportunities for the explosive play. Some of that, was definitely created, with the way the defense was playing. But there were some drives that were put together. I think that finishing the drives. There's some dynamics of it. With the quarterbacks and times of extending plays, and would they or would they not have been. Those are always questions. But we're operating the way that we're operating in that. But it sets up great situations for guys to have to work through. And I thought it was a lot of good situational work. I thought the defense. They were able to eliminate, the explosive play. I think that, they were able to create a couple of the takeaways, which were good. And then, just looking for that continued violence to the ball. There was one ball that got knocked out, throughout it, which go back and see it on film real time. It was tough to see, but that was a positive. But I want more, and it's for all phases, just continue to feel that the violence that's necessary in playing this game. And I think that, big picture, I think we are pushing. I think we're pushing harder. I think there's a better, there's a better chase. There's you feel the team together, and that's why even today, my expectation is for it to be better than what it's been. And I don't think we hit that in all periods, every play. But I do like what I've seen for now 10 practices. As a big picture whole, we got to have that constant improvement. We got to have that constant edge, and you never know what play in the game is going to be the difference maker, and so we've got to approach every play with that expectation. And so, but I was pleased with a lot of the different elements that showed up, and a lot of good film to be able to teach off of and grow from.
Brendan?
You mentioned some position groups being lighter and presenting opportunities. I guess who's stepping up in your estimation? Who's taking advantage of those opportunities?
Yeah, a guy that I thought did well, got some run in the first group. Jonathan Daniels. He's still a freshman. And he's still got a lot of things that he's learning and working through. But I thought that he did some good things. I've really been pleased. The leadership, on some of the guys on the offensive line. We're down some guys up there, and but Lou Pettibone, has been remarkable. Him, Adrian Medley, both those guys. Really like what I've seen. Andre Otto, he's taken some real progressive steps. TJ Ferguson was able to get back out to practice today, which he showed a lot of toughness and fight in that. So that's a group that is down. Some guys. You see guys trying to capitalize on those reps that they're getting with that first group, and we're just overall more reps to kind of show exactly where they are. So that's a big push. At receiver we've got Jamin Boggs is he just continued. I thought he had a good day today. He had a set, and Skelly I think he got three straight catches. He's still learning, figuring it out. We moved him around just a little bit, and he's shown maturity to be able to handle that. We still pushing for more from him, but he's definitely been a bright spot for what I've seen here in camp, and it was good to see him kind of take another positive step here today, after especially coming off the scrimmage.
Corey?
As a coach, when you're looking at the offensive game film from a scrimmage and you're like, okay, well, that's not where our starting, how do you project how the play would develop? And do you do this with, like, if your starters are out there instead of maybe guys that will be, when you're judging your quarterback, the decision they make, the ball placement, everything they saw, do you project like that would look different if Deuce and Squirrel? Do you know what I'm asking? Like,
yeah, as you sit there and you go through and you judge the quarterback by how they handle the situation. Where what are they making the guys out there better? Are they going through the proper reads? Are they putting the ball in places where it needs to be? And and then you obviously have we got a sense of what that's going to look like. Squirrel got even more work today. Got some work last week. We held him from the scrimmage, but Deuce, we got a good number of practices to be able to see exactly where he is, and like that. But it provides opportunities. I think Elijah Moore is another guy that we're just looking for that every play where he's just looking to take another step. I'm excited about the potential, but it just as I'm thinking through just different plays and elements. But it's you get a good assessment of where guys are in their understanding, their command, and I think the quarterbacks have done a good job in that. And then are they making the guys around it better? And then as we continue to elevate that competition and continue to elevate the guys that are available, then it'll look probably a little bit different, and even more of what the capabilities are.
We've asked you before about your role right now, not calling plays. The coordinators also, they don't have positions to coach. It used to be coordinators had to also coach a position. How's that been how do you like that dynamic for your all the coordinaters?
I think it's really good, and you see that you obviously we got a couple great coordinators that are well versed in all levels, and so when you have that experience, when you have that understanding, and then to be able to address any issues that they see in all phases, and to be able to make sure that that it's hitting a certain standard, that expectation, make sure that everybody's coordinated in what we're teaching, what we're installing. And I think those guys do a good job of moving within their side of ball, but also you know, being able to be a great resource for the assistant and for the guys that are at the positions, just because of their overall knowledge and, you know, having that flexibility to move a little bit.
I got time for a couple more. Ira's got to follow up.
Should have said 2 for 1.
It should have been, but they're totally unrelated.
It doesn't matter, it's
Okay.
2, 4, 1.
One,
It's,
yeah.
one up.
Obviously, a quarterback never wants to turn the ball over. Looking at kind of the ways that the plays developed and the situations, how'd you feel about Tommy's decision making?
Oh yeah, and I mean there was you know, on one of the way to screen pass that was tipped intercepted that, you know, we actually had a bust on the play. There's an MA at another position that should have helped eliminate the tip, and you know, it's one of those things that you know, you continue to help quarterbacks understand, like, you know, some things are going to be you know, you make the most of what you can, and you know, if you see it, you know, I mean, these are the other options. Then we had you know, it was a vertical shot, push down the field, you know. On the other one, defensive back made a good play. There's a, you know, going into a young receiver has an opportunity to come back, you know, and so it's a good teaching moment. But you know, I think you know, he's done a good job. You know, just Tommy specifically has done a good job of working to try to own the football. And you know, there's still elements of it that you know, for him, you know, I think he knows the good miss. He knows, you know, the places that we want to try to locate it. And then it's, you know, when you have a playmaker like that, and I think all, you know, 3 guys in that room, you know, that have been, you know, heavy reps, you know, I think those guys have all shown playmaking ability. Well, you know, understanding when and where to be able to push the ball in those situations, you know, to gauge the risk when it comes to it. But I think they've done a nice job and you know, continuing to get better with it.
Now we're going to go 2 more. Gregory.
The Desser brothers, Coach White spoke highly of them the other day. What have you seen from them, I guess, maturity-wise, and then they're really maybe make some sort of impact?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think you talk about the edge. I mean, it's one of the things they lead with, and you know, they play with. You know, they're still figuring out a lot. You know, as they transition, but you know, I've been really pleased with just the maturity of their approach. I mean, they're still young, but they're, you know, you could feel them, you know, on the field. I mean, they bring a certain intensity to each snap. I mean, you know, they play with high motors. Still areas to grow in that, you know, be a play in and play out. But you know, they're guys that I'm excited about, and you know, really looking forward to just seeing their continued progress as they grasp the big picture, and then just continue to work on the finer details of the fundamentals and techniques. But you know, they've got some natural football too that get you excited as a coach.
All right, last one, Corey.
You were blessed to have a very good kicker the last 2 years. I don't know if there's a kid with a bigger leg than the one you got now. As you look towards the fall, and if he can dial it in, can it change the way you approach like a late half situation, knowing that, man, there's a chance of 59, 60 yarders in range with this kid in his leg? And have you been pleased with what you've seen from him overall?
I have, and you know, right now this is his, you know, his opportunity to go out there and, you know, obviously we have, and I've talked to him, you know, the last few weeks about, you know, there's not, right now you know, we got Bruno that's coming, and he'll be that'll bring, you know, really thrust more competition into it. But you know, for Jake, it's the competition has to be with him. It's got to be just about him going out there and you know, maximizing, you know, his reps, maximizing, you know, things that he can control. You know, he's been good. You know, there was on Saturday, I thought that was actually one of his less days. You missed a few that you know, I thought that you know, he was, you know, he's shown to be, you know, the capabilities, but he does have a huge leg, and you know, to say that it changes dynamic. Now, I mean, you know, last year Ryan hit a 59-yarder at the end of a half, so it probably more similar to what it was. You know, it's him building that confidence within himself. That it's, hey, if we need to pull the trigger, like, I mean, and he does. I mean, I've seen him hit from over 65. So I mean, he's got a great leg. You know, it's just you know, making sure that the consistency of execution and putting himself where he needs to be.
All right, thank you, Coach.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.